Imagine you're walking through a parking lot, and you notice a small crowd gathered around someone's car, all peering inside, whispering, clearly excited about something. You didn't see what they saw. You don't know what's actually in that car. But here's the strange part. Your legs are already moving toward the crowd before your brain has even decided to investigate. That pull, that automatic curiosity, is one of the oldest and most reliable triggers in the human mind. And it's exactly the trigger being aimed at you every time you see a video or a post claiming something like, "Smart money is quietly buying this," or "Whales are loading up before everyone else catches on." Here's the question almost nobody stops to ask in that moment. How would anyone actually know that? Who's tracking this? And even if it's true, does someone else's buying decision tell you anything at all about whether you should make the same move? Today, instead of chasing the next hidden token whales are buying, let's pull back the curtain on why that exact phrase works so effectively on otherwise smart, careful people, and what's actually worth paying attention to instead. Here's the quiet belief a lot of people carry into this space without ever questioning it out loud. If big money is moving into something, that's valuable information, and I should move with it before I'm left behind. It sounds logical on the surface. After all, large investors presumably have more resources, more research, more sophisticated tools than the average person scrolling on their phone. So if the whales are buying something, surely they know something the rest of us don't. But here's the part that almost never gets examined. In most cases, when you see a claim like this circulating online, you have no actual way to verify who is buying, how much, or why. You're not looking at real evidence. You're looking at a sentence, often attached to a chart with an arrow pointing upward, designed to produce one specific feeling: the fear that someone smarter than you already knows something, and the window to catch up is closing fast. Think about how this phrase actually spreads. Someone notices unusual activity on a small, low-volume token, a handful of larger purchases moving the price more than usual simply because there isn't much trading volume to begin with. That observation gets repackaged into a dramatic claim. Whales are accumulating. The claim gets shared, reshared, and dressed up with screenshots, and by the time it reaches an ordinary viewer, it sounds like confirmed insider knowledge instead of what it usually is, a guess wrapped in confident language. Core explanation: let's break this down carefully, piece by piece, because once you understand exactly how this works, the phrase loses almost all of its persuasive power over you. Layer 1, who actually counts as a whale? And how would anyone know? Here's a simple way to think about what the word whale actually means in this context. It generally refers to someone holding a very large amount of a particular asset, large enough that their trades can visibly move the price. That part is real. Large holders genuinely exist in every market. But here's where things get shaky. Publicly available blockchain data can sometimes show that a large amount of a token moved from one digital wallet to another. What it usually cannot tell you is who owns that wallet, why they moved it, whether it's actually a long-term investment or a transfer between two accounts the same person controls, or even whether it's an exchange shuffling funds internally for completely unrelated reasons. So, when a video confidently claims, "Whales are buying this specific hidden token," what's actually happening behind the scenes is often a much smaller, much less certain observation. Some wallet activity, some unusual volume, dressed up into a confident narrative because confident narratives perform better than honest uncertainty. It's a little like seeing a stranger carry a large box into a building and immediately telling everyone, "A wealthy collector is secretly buying rare art here." Maybe. Or maybe they're just moving furniture. Layer 2, why imitating others feels like safety. Here's a psychological pattern that explains why this kind of claim hits so hard. Humans are wired to use the behavior of others as a shortcut for making decisions, especially in situations involving uncertainty. This isn't a flaw. It's actually been a useful survival strategy for most of human history. If everyone around you suddenly started running in one direction, following along without stopping to personally verify the danger was often the smarter move than standing still to investigate. The problem is that this same wiring doesn't distinguish well between everyone is running because there's a real threat, and everyone is running because they saw other people running. In financial markets, this creates something researchers call herding behavior. People don't always buy because they've done independent research. Often, they buy because they observed other people buying, or because they were told other people were buying, and that observation alone felt like sufficient evidence. Here's the deeper insight inside this. Following the crowd doesn't actually require you to know anything. It just requires you to believe that someone else knows something. And the word whale specifically is doing a lot of emotional work in that belief, because it implies size, implies resources, implies sophistication, even when the actual evidence behind the claim might be a single unverified transaction on a barely traded token. Layer 3. Why hidden is an especially persuasive word. Here's a word worth examining closely: hidden. Calling something a hidden token does something specific to how your brain evaluates it. It frames the opportunity as something undiscovered, something most people haven't found yet, which taps directly into the part of your brain that wants to feel ahead of the crowd rather than behind it. But ask yourself a simple question. If something is genuinely hidden, how exactly did it end up in a video with thousands of views, explained clearly enough for you to understand within minutes? The very act of widely publicizing something as hidden is almost a contradiction. True information advantages, the kind that genuinely matter in markets, are rarely handed out for free to a general audience through a catchy video title. This doesn't mean every creator using this kind of language is acting in bad faith. Often, it's simply the most effective way to get attention in a crowded space, because hidden and secret and before everyone else finds out reliably perform well, regardless of whether the underlying claim holds up. But effective marketing language and accurate information are two completely separate things, and conflating them is exactly how curious, well-meaning people end up making decisions based on excitement rather than evidence. Layer 4, the asymmetry between watching and doing. Here's a layer that's easy to miss. When you watch a video about whales supposedly buying something, you're seeing a tiny, curated glimpse into a much larger, much messier reality. You don't see the dozens of similar claims made about other tokens that quietly faded into nothing. You don't see how the price behaved a year after the exciting claim, only the exciting moment itself, isolated and amplified. This creates a strange asymmetry. The cost of making this kind of claim, for whoever's making it, is essentially nothing. If the claim turns out to be wrong, it simply gets forgotten, buried under newer content. But the cost of acting on the claim, for the person watching, can be very real. Money moved into something based on a narrative that was never actually verified in the first place. The person spreading the claim risks almost nothing. The person acting on it risks something genuinely meaningful. Now let's bring this together into the deeper idea, because this is the part that changes how you engage with this entire category of content, not just around crypto, but anywhere a claim about secretive insider activity is being used to create urgency. The reason whales are buying this hidden token works so effectively isn't because whales don't exist, or because large buyers never move markets. It's because the phrase is engineered to feel like information while actually functioning as persuasion. It borrows the appearance of evidence, large numbers, confident language, a sense of insider access, without requiring any of the actual verification that real evidence would need to hold up. Here's the psychological truth underneath all of this. Curiosity and conviction feel remarkably similar from the inside, even though they should lead to very different actions. Curiosity says, "Interesting, let me look into this further." Conviction says, "I should act now." A huge amount of financial hype works by skipping straight from curiosity to conviction, without ever passing through the slower, less exciting step of actually checking whether the claim holds up. Think of it like a friend texting you, "You won't believe what I just heard about someone we both know," and then not elaborating right away. The curiosity that single sentence creates is genuinely intense enough that most people would drop almost anything to find out more. But notice that the sentence itself contains zero actual information. It's pure curiosity bait, and your brain treats the intensity of the curiosity as if it were proportional to the importance of what's coming. when really, the sentence was simply engineered to produce maximum curiosity with minimum content. Whales are buying this hidden token works on exactly the same principle. It's engineered curiosity, dressed up to feel like insider intelligence. And the skill worth building isn't learning to spot the next real whale movement before anyone else does. It's learning to notice the moment your curiosity is being deliberately spiked, and treating that spike as a signal to slow down and verify, rather than a signal that something important has already been confirmed. So here's what to actually do, practically, the next time a video or post claims that large secretive buyers are quietly accumulating something. First, ask what specific checkable evidence is actually being offered. Not a feeling, not a confident tone, not an arrow pointing upward on a chart, but something you could independently verify yourself. If the honest answer is just trust the narrator, treat that as useful information about how much weight the claim deserves. Second, remind yourself that publicized secrets are a contradiction. If something is genuinely being kept quiet by sophisticated buyers, it's very unlikely to simultaneously be the subject of a widely shared video explaining it to a general audience in simple terms. The packaging itself, easy to understand, made for mass appeal, often tells you more than the content does. Third, separate the existence of large buyers from the meaning of their behavior. Even in cases where large transactions genuinely did occur, that alone doesn't tell you why they happened, whether they represent confidence or simply internal movement between accounts, or whether the same buyer might sell just as quickly. Size of a transaction is not the same thing as quality of information behind it. Fourth, notice the asymmetry between the claim and the consequence. Whoever is making the claim faces very little cost if they're wrong. You face the actual financial cost if you act on it. Before moving money based on excitement, ask whether you'd still feel confident making the same decision if the exciting framing were stripped away entirely, leaving only the bare facts. Fifth, treat curiosity as useful, but treat conviction as something that has to be earned separately. It's completely fine to find a claim about whale activity interesting enough to look into further. The mistake isn't curiosity itself, it's letting curiosity skip the verification step and convert directly into action. Here's the idea worth carrying forward, long after this particular phrase fades and the next version of it takes its place. Whales are quietly buying this isn't dangerous because whales don't exist or because large buyers never move markets in real ways. It's dangerous because the phrase is specifically engineered to feel like privileged information while requiring absolutely none of the verification that real information would need to hold up. It borrows the language of evidence to deliver a feeling instead. The skill worth building here was never about correctly identifying which token the big players are secretly accumulating. Nobody outside that activity, watching from a video or a social post, is in a position to verify that with any real confidence. The actual skill is noticing the exact moment your curiosity has been deliberately spiked, and choosing to slow down right there, instead of letting that spike carry you straight into a decision you haven't actually examined. So the next time you see a crowd gathered around something exciting, whether it's a parking lot or a video promising hidden insider activity, ask yourself the same simple question before your legs start moving on their own. What am I actually seeing here? And what am I simply being told to feel? Because the people who navigate this space well were rarely the ones who spotted the whale first. They were the ones who learned to recognize when their own curiosity was being used against them.